Time for the French newspapers now, and the Greek crisis, of course, still making French headlines.
Yes, indeed. Of course, what's interesting to the French newspapers about it is how is it going to affect François Hollande? Is he really going to be able to start off a new kind of European economic cooperation based on growth rather than austerity, or has it already been completely sabotaged by the crisis in Greece? Well, Le Figaro headlines on the baptism of fire for Hollande in Europe, which it certainly is, given the chaos in Greece this week. They reckon that Greece is going to be the first thorn in his presidency in their editorial there. Now, they effectively said that it's all very well for him to stand on the sidelines during the campaign saying, I would do this and this. Once you actually have your hands on the reins, you start to realise how complicated the whole situation is, at least according to them. They say, of course, it seems to be more and more likely, or more and more be seriously talked about, especially by people like German ministers, that the idea that Greece might now end up pulling out of the euro. They don't want to see that. They say it would create a dangerous precedent that might be followed by Spain and Portugal. Hollande should stop that from happening. Over at Libération, the left-wing paper, they've got a rather excellent front page of Hollande.
Good image.
Yeah, Hollande as Sisyphus pushing an enormous boulder with the EU flag on it up a hill.
So inside, are they sort of optimistic that you can manage to do that then, or...?
Well, I think, of course, this is a paper that supports Hollande. They're notably less optimistic than they were even 2 days ago on the issue of Europe because of the ongoing unpredictable situation in Greece. Now, they flag up the success of Front National here in France and of neo-Nazis in Greece as evidence that if the social democratic left doesn't find a different way to deal with the Eurozone crisis, it's going to be populist right-wing parties who benefit. And they say they have a broader look at Hollande's foreign policy challenges ahead of him, a subject, of course, he didn't talk much about in the campaign. They interview a former socialist foreign minister in there who say that, well, he's got some advantages to start with when meeting and talking to people like Angela Merkel because his style is so different from Nicolas Sarkozy's. He's not going to be posturing on the world stage. He's much more pragmatic, much more relaxed, much more willing to negotiate. And, of course, though, he's got some fairly difficult challenges ahead of him. They reckon he can already be credited with changing the language that the EU is using to talk about the crisis, saying there's much less talk now of punishment and cuts and more talk about jobs and growth. But talk turning into action is quite a different thing.
I was watching Laura Baines' evening programme on France 24 last night. Fascinating piece seeing the old government holding their last cabinet meeting, all moving out. It's kind of just really interesting, isn't it, to see those pieces. And it was quite emotional as well, wasn't it?
Yes, there were quite a few red eyes seen, according to Le Parisien. Here is François Fillon, the outgoing Prime Minister, leading his former cabinet out of the Élysée after their final cabinet meeting yesterday. Now, they're also on the front page of free paper 20 Minutes, which has got after Sarkozy, what, as a headline, seeing the cabinet walk out there. And, well, what? Now, there's lots of rumours saying that within the UMP we're about to have a leadership war between outgoing Prime Minister François Fillon and the party's current leader Jean-François Copé, who both see themselves as the natural successor to Sarkozy to lead that party. So lots of rumours about how they might be stabbing each other in the back. Their immediate problem, though, is the parliamentary elections coming up on the 17th of June, where the UMP, the right-wing party, look like they might lose as many as 1 in 3 seats.
I think they might be thinking about those elections. They're not looking too good for the right, are they?
Well, they're really not. There's a poll in Les Echos saying that 45% of the French want to see the socialist president get a big majority to help him govern with. Only 30% plan to vote for a right-wing candidate. So the, of course, ultimate hope of the right is that they'll manage to elect a right-wing prime minister, creating what in France is called a cohabitation, where you have a president of one political colour and a prime minister of the other, like with Jacques Chirac and Lionel Jospin in the late 90s. And of course, then in that situation, you get virtually nothing done because they can't agree on anything. But that's what the right are hoping for. It seems like a bit of a long shot, though, for them. As I said, 1 in 3 UMP ministers look a bit vulnerable. Marine Le Pen, of course, is trying to collect as many MPs as she possibly can to oppose them in Parliament. She said yesterday, according to Le Parisien, that while she won't plan on making an agreement with the UMP at a national level, she is thinking about making agreements with local deputies who are prepared to back the FN instead of the socialist in a constituency where the UMP is doing badly. And she says she's prepared to allow some UMP members who feel disillusioned with their movement to join the Front National, which there's been lots of rumours recently that some on the right may do.
Full coverage, of course, of those elections then coming up here on France 24 over the next month or so. Elena, thanks very much.